Hey listeners, we all know how important it is to get dedicated face time with retail buyers. And now when you upgrade to a RangeMeet Pro subscription, you get 3 in-person buyer meetings at an ECRM session. That's right, 3 20-minute private meetings with buyers in your category. Tell them your story, sample your products, and have a distraction-free conversation. And a pro tip, our Startup CPG community discount is the best deal around on RangeMeet. You can get RangeMeet Pro with the 3 meetings for $11.99. That's more than half off the regular annual rate. RangeMeet Pro subscribers also get unlimited product listings, a dedicated customer success manager, VIP access to limited time campaigns, exclusive ongoing submission opportunities, and insights into which retailers are checking out your brand and products. To learn more, visit rangeme.com/startupcpg.
We recommend hey, try and figure out how you can get that, how you can scale at like a 2 or 2.5x, because at the end of the day, a premium website, premium ads, and premium spend, right? You're going to get rewarded for spending more than your competitors. That's what makes Meta and Google money. So if you can do all those things, you are going to absolutely crush it, and you're going to get rewarded so much more if you can manage those. Now, that doesn't mean we scale everybody at a 2 or 2.5x. You're always trading volume for profitability, right? It's an equation. So you kind of have to look at it like that.
Hello, CPGers. Are you ready to learn about meta ads with me? I am a total novice, so I love this episode with Andrew and Victor from AdCrunch. For me, they really highlighted the importance of studying the videos and templates that are already working for other people on social media, and then just testing tons of different hooks and offers to see what really starts to drive profitable growth. I'm also excited to say that they usually only work with brands on something like a $10,000 level retainer, but they've created 2 pared down packages just for startup CPG brands. There's a $2,500 a month option where you get a limited number of videos from them, and then also a even cheaper option if you just want coaching. So if you want more info about that, stay tuned to the end, and also you can check the show notes for more info on those offers and also how to follow up with them. Enjoy! Hello and welcome to the Startup CPG podcast. Recently, we did a webinar on meta ads with today's guests, Andrew and Victor from AdCrunch. I couldn't attend, but then I heard about it from so many people that it was one of the best webinars they'd ever seen, so we had to get them on the podcast. Andrew and Victor have years of experience helping CPG brands unlock growth through Meta and Google Ads. I'm so excited just to dive right in. Andrew and Victor, welcome to the podcast. Welcome, guys.
Hello, hello.
All right.
Great to be here.
So just to get started, could you tell me about AdCrunch Digital and how you got into the Meta ads business?
Yeah, Andrew,
Yeah.
you want to report?
Yeah, I'll go ahead again. So AdCrunch Digital. So I've always kind of freelanced. Actually, this story kind of starts a while ago. But I initially I was running ads for artists like musicians, and I have a degree in audio production. And very quickly I figured out businesses would pay you much, much more money to run ads for them than musicians. So that's kind of how it started. That's kind of how we got into the industry, the marketing industry. Really from there, we want to be excellent in everything that we do. So I feel like Victor and I have just pursued excellence and trying to figure out hey, what's the cheapest, best way to test ads? What's the best way to what are the strategies we can use to actually grow companies? How do offers, ads and website optimization work together? So that's kind of been really Victor and I are in the pursuit of excellence. And yeah, we love, watching, brands go from, $1 million, $2 million to 10 plus. It's just cool to see a brand grow like that, especially when you have a good product. So.
All right. So when it comes to musicians, yeah, probably they don't have a lot of budget for things like meta ads, because what's the return going to be for them? If they even acquire customers to listen to their streaming, it's just pennies for them, right? So if you think about businesses having bigger budgets, that makes sense. But which are the kinds of businesses specifically, let's say within CPG, that are going to have bigger budgets, meaning this is going to be a more profitable way for them to grow?
Yeah, it's less about budgets and more about your average order value. So our recommendation is an average order value of $75 plus. Just generally speaking, that's where we see, hey, you can get to $5,000 a day, $10,000 a day, and spend at 75, plus dollar AOV. If you're not there yet, there are a lot of ways to get there, and there are other things you can do. With subscription models and offers to get closer to that. But yeah, generally we're looking for around the $75 AOV. You could go a little bit lower if your conversion rate is really high or you have a good organic presence. So,
Okay, so average order size or AOV is the
mhm.
most important thing. And then you said, it could be a little bit different if your conversion rate is high, which means the number of people who actually respond to an ad that you're running.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, great. So that makes sense. And then, okay, if you're thinking about working first with the brands that have the biggest order size, within that, like, do you see differences about like, well, what kind of product is it exactly? I mean, I know there's going to be a big impact also about like just the profitability. Okay,
Yeah.
I ran a beverage company. The product is heavy. It still was very hard for it to make sense, even if we could get people to buy a few cases.
Yeah. Yeah. I think specifically, like I'm sure y'all are maybe familiar with Waterboy. Something like that where it's easy to ship, where you're gonna have a subscription, right? They're like electrolytes for hangovers, right? So I love using them as an example because I'm sure most people are buying them, multiple times, and that kind of brings me to my next point. Any product that's problem solution is going to sell much better on Meta than a product that just looks cool. So if your product solves a specific problem, like Waterboy is like, oh, we're electrolytes for hangover, right? That's what it does. That's going to be so much more effective than I like to use clothing brands as an example. It's like you really have to, kind of I almost feel like clothing brands are still like so influencer heavy. You have to get your clothes on the right people. You have to really make it look cool versus like, if you're a clothing brand, maybe, I don't know, like this is an idea, but dresses with pockets, right? That's very problem solution for girls. So anything like that's going to sell better.
That's pretty interesting. And that's
Mhm.
because people just, when they're scanning through ads, like they're just going to respond quicker to some kind of a need state that they have because of a problem.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's much easier to like convince people that they do have that problem, right? I think it's really easy to show like, hey, your dresses don't have pockets. Like what happens, what happened, of course, yeah, you have a purse, but what if you're just out and about and you forget your purse or you just want quick access. I think it's easier to show that than showing like, look how cool this is, or this will make you, look fitter or whatever, right? So those are definitely the brands that do better on Meta.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just saw and saved an ad because it was like, these are the most comfortable travel pants for bigger guys. I was like,
Yeah,
so I saw that ad. I'm immediately like, okay, yeah, that looks like something that I need. So I saved it so I could buy it later. I was traveling at the time, actually. So when I got home, I could check it out. So that, yeah, and it's not often that an ad will get me for something like that. So hearing you say that, it makes sense why. So, okay, let's say like a lot of brands that I know, you've been focused on retail. And, I think like historically, D2C was a moneymaker for a lot of people, right? And then, I mean, I guess the game kind of changed, right? When there was a big change around Apple, or I forget what it was exactly. Maybe you can tell us.
yeah,
And then all of a sudden, the game got real. And so people were focusing much more on retail again because the acquisition costs had gone up so much. And, now it feels like people are like, okay, we've got the retail going. Now for the brands where it makes sense, let's see if we can get a good strategy going for driving the online business. Can you tell me a little bit more about that context? And then if you're starting to think about this, like how do you tell people to approach meta ads in general and their strategy for it?
yes, yeah. So this is I feel like my answer here could potentially is always a big point of contention for brand owners. You have to create offers. You cannot usurp a market leader or anybody without running offers at first. So like the idea is You like, Coca-Cola just has to do like, you just have to advertise. You just have to see their stuff. That is not true when you're a startup. I would say under 5 to 10 million, and you don't have a large organic presence. You need to do like, you know, I'll give you two really good offers here that you could implement like tomorrow, and you're going to see your revenue jump up. And the thing with offers though is you need to keep running them. You want to give away more than your competitor. That doesn't mean that you have to make less than your competitor. It just means you have to give away what's perceived as more than your competitor. So something like one brand we work with, where they are a seasoning supplement. So it's an organ meat supplement that you season your food with. And the offer we did, we actually, their price was only $20 for a month's supply. We actually increased their price to $30. You can subscribe at $20 a month, or you could get two for $55 or four for $65. And this changed their profitability dramatically. One, we did start marketing it.
Can I
Oh
cut
yeah,
us?
yeah.
I think there's a lot of good stuff in here, but I'm not sure it
Yeah.
answered the question that I asked
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, I was trying to get you to
Mhm.
like give us a roadmap for what we're going to be talking about a little bit, just
Yes.
to to explain it to
Yeah.
people. So like I know on like Victor's
Hmm.
like on his LinkedIn profile, he has the like, yeah, here's what you do. First you come up with this, then you
Yeah.
do that, like come up
Okay.
with your
Yeah.
strategy. I would say let's start there. And then I think it'll
Hmm.
be good to specifically get into offers. And I think also when you
Okay.
say offers, people don't know what offers means. So I'd be like offers
Gotcha.
like XYZ. And then
Okay. Yeah.
okay, cool. So let's start that one again.
Okay.
So and I'll word the question a little bit better.
Hmm.
Okay. So clap us back in. Okay. That's for the editor, so she knows where to cut. Okay. So we know that a few years ago there was a huge change in terms of acquisition cost for online users that led to a lot of people scaling back their e-commerce investments. Now it seems like okay, people are investing in retail more, but now e-commerce perhaps is coming back and people are thinking about approaching it and maybe for the first time or maybe just ramping up their investments. How do you talk to a brand that really is just getting started in meta ads for like, hey, how should you be thinking about starting your strategy?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the first thing, the most important thing is going to be your like just your messaging, right? We have a lot of, and we're giving it away, in the description here, but a hook sheet, right? You want to figure out what hooks resonate with your audience. If you don't know how to talk to people, you're just not going to sell your product. And the other idea here is volume. We test a volume of hooks, and that's because you have to go through kind of different frameworks of hooks, whether it's like point of view hooks or like equals hooks. That's what we call them. Like like a long hair equals dream, like my dream hair or something like that. So things like that. Um, we work through this framework of hooks, and then we'll test around like 30 or 40 of them, just to see what kind of messaging is actually resonating most with our audience. So that would be the first step.
Okay, so the most important thing is the messaging, and you're basically
Yes.
creating a bunch of different hooks. And
Mhm.
I mean, I've run a brand before, and I think it actually would have been hard for us to come up with a lot of those hooks because we
Mhm.
would have been so tied to our branding and like how we talk about the brand. But then I've
Yeah.
had marketers, e-commerce marketers come in and be like, "You're doing it all wrong. This is the way you need to talk about this," and it like hurts for you to hear it. You're like, "That's not what
Yeah.
we want to do," but you're probably right. Like, do you get that a lot? And then how do you actually come up with those 40 hooks?
Oh yeah, yeah. Facebook is your playground. That's what a lot of people don't realize. This is not your end all be all. I mean, if you spend $100 on an ad, that's not your brand. That's learning, right? So I think that's where people, they feel like, it feels very much like TV. It feels like, I'm putting this out. This is permanent. Everybody's going to see this, and it's just not true. A subset of people in America are going to see your ad, and you're going to get feedback from them, and that's what's important. And then, yeah, I think, and then I'm sorry, what was the next question?
When it comes to hooks, I understand the importance of them. We've all been gotten by one of them on Instagram, probably. But the interesting thing for me, having run a brand, is that I actually wouldn't be able to come up with those hooks very well because I'd be trying so hard to align them to our brand pillars and just like our own language. But I've had really good e-commerce marketers come in and be like, that's bad. And you should talk about it this way. That's what people actually care about. It's hard to hear it, but they're probably right that the hook is not what you think it is. And often it's easier to hear it from somebody else. So when you're working with a brand, how do you come up with all of those 40 hooks that you're going to test? And is it usually something they don't actually expect on the brand side?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So with branding, we kind of think branding to a degree. I'm not saying totally is dead, especially with the language. Basically, we look at it as like Facebook's your playground. It's your way to test and actually get real feedback. Before you had to send out 10,000 mailers to get feedback on one hook. Now you can spend $10 to get feedback on a hook. So your spend should actually dictate your brand, not the other way around, because you could get real feedback so quickly now with Meta. And then how do we come up with these hooks? You get on TikTok. You can search all these different variations of we kind of do a lot of like we'll do like a lot of like versus hooks, POV hooks. We'll look for things that are trending. I think actually the biggest problem with copy and hooks right now is marketers write to other marketers. They're not writing to consumers. And so this sounds crazy, but we used to write hooks like, and I'm just going to use hair extensions as an example because we work with a lot of hair extension brands, but and beauty brands. But like literally, our winning hook right now for our hair extension brands is POV. Watch me install these extensions with 3 S's and a sparkle heart. All right. We're not like where it's not, stop buying cheap extensions and get extensions that last after the 17th wash, right? It's like it's inviting the person in to come watch the video and like learn something. It's inviting them to watch the demo, things like that. I mean, it is ridiculous, but things like that are like long hair equals self-care. We're just kind of reformatting a classic benefit hook to be a little bit more palatable to consumers. So
Okay. So I know our social media team, which is awesome, they look through, what templates or,
mhm,
you know, types of memes or trends or whatever are
yeah.
trending on TikTok or Instagram. And then like we can think about how to repurpose those for a message that we're trying to get out. So it sounds like it's a
Yeah.
similar process for the kind of hooks that you guys come up with, right? You're looking and seeing what's really out there. Yeah. So like versus, okay, you're seeing a lot of templates around that
Mhm.
and then figuring out how do we adapt that for this brand. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. Just TikTok I almost say Google your product on TikTok. TikTok your product on TikTok, and see like what other people are doing, and also look at trends in adjacent industries. So like if you're selling, electrolytes, like see what is it like Body Armor or Powerade is doing, right? Because those people are also consuming that content as well. They're not just consuming content for electrolytes. So adjacent industries are really important to look
Okay.
at too.
So literally in the search bar, just type in your product and see what people are posting about it, and then look up some of your competitor products and seeing what kind of content they're posting and people are posting about them.
Exactly. Yeah. And do it on TikTok too, because that's where you're going to find the on trend stuff.
Okay, makes sense. And then I wanted to ask also about offers, right? Because a lot of times you're going to be, I guess, combining those or maybe separately doing offers, right? Of some kind of
Mhm.
a special or a discount. What role does that play?
Yeah, offers are huge for growth in the CPG world. I can tell you like one brand we were working with, they were kind of chugging along at it's like 8K a day. We literally started running this what we call a threshold offer, and all it is you get 10% off if you spend below. Let's just say your average order value is $100. So your high end threshold should be at like 125. It should be just a bit above your average order value to push people up over that. So they would get 10% off if you spend under 125, and then 20% off if you spend over 125. That's a very simple offer y'all could implement right now and probably see a ridiculous amount of growth. When we did this with this brand, they went from about 8K a day and now they're at 15K a day. I mean, every single day. It's just all you're doing is you're incentivizing, and their average order value has gone up, their conversion rate's gone up, and all it really is just an incentive to push people up over what they're normally spending. And then you want to have that lower end discount because you want everybody to have a reason to buy. So, and then they're also comparing the offers. It's like, okay, I only get 10% off. I was already going to spend $100 anyway. If I spend $125, that's $100, right? And so a lot of times people even spend more than that higher end. So they'll spend 150 or 175 or something like that. So it really does help a lot.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about. I feel like with things like online grocery delivery, if I'm a few bucks away from the free delivery, I'm just barely going over. I'll add just a
Yeah.
second thing or whatever. But yeah, if I'm shopping, okay, yeah, like there isn't just some $10 or $15 item that I probably want to add from a retailer that I don't know. I'll just be like, okay, well, I'll just get a whole other item and I know I can return it if I need to usually. So Victor, let me pull you in here then, because we're kind of talking about the juxtaposition of some hooks and offers and like text and stuff with also then videos and like what kind of videos are going to be really trending. So just based off all the stuff that we're talking about right now, yeah, what are some of the video strategies that you think are really important for brands to consider? And like when you're thinking about the videos you're going to create as a brand to get started on Meta, should you be thinking about like just kind of blue ocean, like here's the kind of content I want to create, or really just jumping in and looking at what's out there and then figuring out, okay, how can we replicate something just like that?
Yeah, Daniel, that's a great question. And it goes back to a very similar process in which we talked about a while ago, where Andrew mentioned looking at what's trending, right? There are several different ways to look at video. The biggest thing is you want to see if brand specific things are going to resonate with your audience or native, right? So there are three different levels here where we look at video creatives that are more brand. You can tell these are like TV ads and stuff where they're just very well done, polished, right? All the way over to native, which is somebody just filmed it on their iPhone, right? And native is probably one of the best things to do for any brand because number one, it's cost effective. You can easily do it. Number two, it blends in with what's happening on the platform and it gets people to actually engage with it, right? There's a whole there's a whole path that you can go down here to really figure out, hey, do I want to do brand or native or brand native, right? So you would test those concepts. The biggest thing I would say is this: if you are looking at these ads and doing this right now on the creative front, when I say creative, I also do mean video creatives. Just go and watch 50 TikTok videos in your niche, whatever it might be. Catch the patterns. And the way that you would qualify is look at the videos that have the most views and the most likes and the most comments. Side note, when you look at the comments and what people are saying, those are words from your potential customers that you can use for your messaging and your video. Like if you're selling, electrolyte drinks, going back to that, people are saying in the comments, it's like, oh, I love the taste of this. I love the taste of this. I love the taste of this, right? Then like those are keywords where you can use that, or I hate the saltiness, right? Then it's like, oh, wow, saltiness is another keyword. Those are all hooks. So to kind of put this all together, it's like, see what's trending, go after that first and test maybe 5 to 10 different concepts. From there, you go into a process where it's very much a scientific method. You just start iterating and you focus first and foremost on the ads that are actually bringing the attention, but also converting people to buy your products. And all you're going to do is go into hook testing first, where you're optimizing the first 3 seconds. Because if you can catch their attention, get them to stop scrolling, then they're going to watch the video and click through to your site.
We'll be right back. Hey guys, I know you all want to grow on Amazon, so I'm so excited to tell you about our official Amazon agency partner, Daybreak. I think they are the best fit for emerging brands. Their retainer is less than half of what most agencies charge, and their team are total killers. I worked with them on my last brand because I'd heard such good things, and they absolutely crushed it. They'll get you started on Amazon or help you level up. First, they fix up your listing, they make your creative ads, they manage your operations and advertising, and can even help with channels like Instacart and Criteo. If you're interested, email them. It's startupcpg@daybreak.agency. It's also in the show notes. And make sure to mention Startup CPG for $600 of free design credits. And now, back to the show. Okay, so um what is it typically like when you work with a brand and you're saying, okay, here are the kind of videos we need? Like, are they scheduling different content days or whatever just to then, hey, we need to film these 5 different hooks. Okay, let's go and do that. Or are you typically repurposing some stuff that they've already filmed or grabbing stuff from maybe like user generated content? How does that typically work when when you figure out those hooks?
Yeah, it depends on budget and it depends on where you're starting. If a brand already has been running ads, right? What we do is we go ahead and say, hey, what are your top performing video hooks, right? Or videos in general. And then we run those again just to validate and make sure, hey, these are strong, right? These are your core money makers. Well, then there are two things to do. It's important to look at it like you're optimizing and you're testing. Those are two separate things. Optimizing are smaller changes, which you mentioned, Daniel, iterating off of what's working, right? Making new ways to repurpose that, keeping the creative fresh. Some of the listeners are probably thinking about words like ad fatigue that gets thrown around a lot in Meta. Well, that's one way to combat that. It's like changing minor changes of things that are winning so they can keep producing. On the other front, testing. That's where, Daniel, you're talking about, hey, scripting, doing shoot days where you're doing shooting and stuff like that. And it's important to think about those two different levers because that's how you allocate your budget for testing. Because in an ad account, you have your budget for just scaling and continuing to make money. You have your budget for testing. And so if you have more threshold for testing and you need to create more winners so that your ad account can get stable to the point where you're ready to scale and make more money, then you can put more money to testing, take bigger swings. And that's where we talk about, hey, let's dissect all of the type videos that are working right now, even bringing in UGC content to see what's the biggest lever for us. Schedule a day, make sure we have the script, and then shoot that and then run those.
Okay, so we're talking a lot about videos. Should everything be a video, or how much do you see people allocating across maybe a still image with some text on it versus actually creating a video?
Yeah, so that's going to be account specific as well as your brand specific. You're going to have to test those different things because your audience is going to resonate differently with that. And no two accounts, even if two companies are selling electrolytes, it's weird. I've seen things where static images work really well from one brand, but then the other brand just dies, and then vice versa with video. So video is the key, especially for pulling in cold traffic and those that are, they don't know your brand and stuff. Images, Andrew and I have found that those work really great for remarketing. People that
Yeah.
have, your touch points. And going back to the offer point a while ago, that it would be a great place. One of the
Yeah.
things we like to run is a carousel ad of
Mhm.
images just pushing an offer like,
Mhm.
hey, flash sale, up to 48% off. Boom. Because you've already spent so much time, energy, and money educating and getting their attention. Now you just got to close the deal.
Mhm.
And is it going to be similar? Okay, with a brand, you probably have your beautiful brand photography. Typically, you think those are the kind of images that are going to do well? Or do you typically give brands like, no, no, do it this way? It's not how you would love to do it, but that's what's actually going to pop in still images?
Yeah, I would take both, right? And then run them as a test because you got to figure out, hey, maybe your brand like loves ugly ads, right? Or your brand is one that actually, makes more money from really polished luxury highline ads. At the beginning, get both and run them. Make sure that you spend the right amount to test them and then you're like, actually, this is the way to go. Now we know that ugly ads work for our brand. Let's kind of structure the content, the static images as well as videos from there around this idea and concept.
Okay, interesting. So I imagine if somebody comes to you for the first time, you're probably going to then look at their stuff and see how it's performing and probably give them some kind of a checkup assessment, right? So, like, if you're looking at some of the metrics, what are some numbers you're immediately going to be looking at for their health assessment and be like, oh, this is good, this is bad, or, hey, this is like workable. We can optimize this versus, no, this is a terrible number. We need to just completely start with testing new content.
Yeah. So first off, there are what we call like, your core metrics and then your soft metrics. So look at the core metrics first, like return on ad spend and volume, right? Don't just look at them in isolation. I think that's the worst thing somebody can do. And if, listeners are trying to figure out, well, how do I master analytics quickly? Lean Analytics is the book that started it off for me over a decade ago, and it's still timeless. How you basically look at data and make it make sense by looking at it relationally. So I would look at return on ad spend as well as the results that you're driving. How many purchases have you gotten on that ad spend? Because some people say, "Hey, I have a 20 x return on my ad spend," but they spent $50. You know, but when you start scaling, you start seeing that the ROAS might decrease, but your volume and your revenue, bottom line revenue, is going to increase. So you look at those two first. What's driving purchases and what's driving purchases profitably? Then, if you're doing video, then your main metrics are going to be hook rate, which is the rate in which people are watching the first 3 seconds of your video. It's like, did your creative hook them to make them stop scrolling and then, listen to your pitch essentially? And then your hold rate, like, did they watch through majority of your video, right? And then you're like, boom, that's great. And then from there, you look at your link click-through rates. After they've seen your video, did they click through to your website, where then you can continue the conversation? And if you're looking for benchmarks, Daniel, I would say hook rates that are at least 30%, it would be great. Hold rates around 15 to 18%. And then link click-through rates, anywhere between 1 to 2% and above. And the last point that I'll kind of, tie this all together with is, as you look at those rates, you'll know when you should move on to the next test and take bigger swings or not. Those are indicators, because if you found that one video is already doing a 40% hook rate with a 20% hold rate, and your click through is, that's a winning concept. That's a winning structure. Put that aside, right? And then use that to then scale the account. And then from there, you're able to move on to new creatives and those other endeavors.
And what for return on ad spend, what are some numbers that you like to see people getting to, let's say after the first 6 months or a year, obviously with your guys' great help optimizing everything?
Yeah, I'm gonna tag Andrew in for this one so that we balance out the conversation. So go ahead, man.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would say ROAS. I mean, it depends on your goals, right? Like, I mean, and to touch on what Victor was saying earlier, like, I'd rather spend 500K at a 2x than spend $50 at a at a 20x, and that's just because you get a halo effect. You can't track like people telling, if you have a good product and you have good customer retention, you can't. It's very hard to track people telling each other about the product. I mean, you hit a tipping point at some point, right? And so that's kind of the at scale, that's the goal with ads, is to get enough of your product in enough people's hands that it just spreads like wildfire, right? So, different businesses have different needs at different points. We work with some businesses that are, I would say, healing from bad agencies previously. And so they want to be a little bit more profitable. We're very much about growth. We recommend, like, hey, try and figure out how you can get that, how you can scale at like a 2 or 2.5x, because at the end of the day, a premium website, premium ads, and premium spend, right? You're going to get rewarded for spending more than your competitors. That's what makes Meta and Google money. So if you can do all those things, you are going to absolutely crush it, and you're going to get rewarded so much more if you can manage those. Now, that doesn't mean we scale everybody at a 2 or 2.5x. You're always trading volume for profitability, right? It's an equation. So you kind of have to look at it like that.
Okay. And then, like, kind of going back to budget, let's say you're just getting into this. I mean, yeah, it's hard to immediately allocate as much budget as you would love to make a huge splash. Probably you guys would even say in this early testing phase, you need to invest enough so but maybe not so much that you're betting the farm on some ideas already before you know what's going to work well. What do you like to see from people?
Yeah, I think again, it depends on the stage of your brand. If you're fresh, new, I mean, do some, we call these engagement click-through rate tests. Do some of those with hooks. That way you can at least see how engaging your hooks are. Those are extremely cheap. They cost about $5 to $7 per hook. If you have a little bit more money, we usually run those tests before we run conversion tests. It's just a cheaper way to test like the engagement level of the hook before we actually go for conversions, which are more expensive. Generally speaking, we'd like to see a minimum, $200 a day testing budget. So
We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. Have you ever reached out to a traditional recruiting agency to try to fill a role and then been shocked when you found out that they charge up to 30% of a first-year salary? That could be $50,000 or way more. That's so unaffordable for an early brand. But there's great news. I am thrilled to announce that Startup CPG now has an official recruiting partner that I think is the best fit for emerging brands. They are called Creative Alignments. They're a top-tier recruiter, and the best thing is that they work on an hourly model. It's called time-based recruiting. Often, you could fill a position with them for just 10 to 12% of a first-year salary, and if you work with them on multiple roles, you could save even more. They've worked with RX Bar, Cauli Power, Kodiak Cakes, Olipop, and so many other brands, and they are extremely well regarded within our Startup CPG Slack community. So if you're considering hiring, I really recommend reaching out to them for a free consultation. You can visit their website at creativealignments.com or email them directly. Our contact is frank.milianti, that's MILIANTI at creativealignments.com. And now, back to the show. Okay, so, and then in terms of testing hooks, is that something that only Andrew and Victor know how to do because you guys have done this so much, or is that something somebody getting started could actually do on their own?
Yeah, anyone getting started could do on their own. If you need help doing it, contact us. But the quick answer is yes. You just want to set up one ad set. Every ad should be exactly the same. Your headline should be exactly the same. Your body copy should be exactly the same. And in that one ad set, you could have 10 ads. You just want to change out the hook in each ad. So that's how you test the hooks. You're basically just like, it's one variable per ad, and that's the hook. So.
And you were saying $5 to $7 an ad, which means that's the kind of minimum you need to put against it to see something that's statistically significant in terms of the difference?
Yes. And then we would run this in what's called a click-through rate campaign. And the goal of that campaign is not to get conversions. It's to just get engagement metrics on your hook. So the idea is one hook has a 10% click-through rate, but another hook has a 2% click-through rate. The hook that has a 10% click-through rate is much more likely to convert because it's higher, more engaging. It can get more people to your site. Facebook's going to reward you for being more engaging. So that's the idea there. And it's just cheaper too.
Got it. Okay, great. So maybe I'll tell you a little bit about our journey creating meta ads and probably not doing it exactly right because we didn't have anyone as smart as you guys helping us. But so for the Startup CPG Instagram, we had a really nice organic growth, people just kind of finding us however. And then I started experimenting a little bit with promoting posts. So we would never, just buy followers. I don't think that's the right way to go. But yeah, promoting some posts. Oh, yeah, sure. Because, I did that a few times and then immediately started meeting people at our events who were like, oh, yeah, I found you through Instagram, which I know is because we had some really cool meme posts or event posts that then we promoted and we got so many new followers because of it. I expect maybe it was a little bit easier for us. And I think we were actually getting followers at a pretty effective rate, maybe because we had already built a lot of brand awareness over time. But I basically was doing the cheap version of this or the I don't know anything version of going into the Instagram app itself and then just hitting boost post and hitting to an audience like mine. And, I was doing pretty well. And then I told a friend of mine who runs another agency about it and he just shook his head. And he was like, it's disgusting how much money you're probably wasting just by not knowing a couple of really easy things that you should be doing. So then, okay, I tried to set up with the business manager, I think online, which was a bit of a process to actually get the accounts linked. I guess that was a hurdle that took me about 4 months of just kind of avoiding having to actually do it. And then, I think once we actually get set up there, I don't know, it's not as easy for somebody who's like a fogey like me just to like click the button and do it. You have to like actually create the ad and go in and do it. But let's say, okay, now let's say you get past that, you're smarter than I am, and you're in there and you actually just start setting up your meta ads in the business manager. What are a couple like low hanging fruit things that anybody should know to do when they start running their ads in there?
Yeah, I think on the ad side, I see a lot of brands not using catalog campaigns and retargeting. They're like people who have either viewed their content or site visitors who have viewed a product. That's probably the easiest way to get a conversion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that is? The catalog campaigns?
Yes. So a catalog is like basically you can connect when you connect Meta to your Shopify store or BigCommerce or whatever. What's called a product catalog should get pushed to Meta, and all that is just it's the pictures of your product. It's the first picture of your product and their pricing and all the product information. And yeah, and that's what a catalog is. It's just a catalog. It's literally a catalog of like an old, they just named it after the old catalogs, right? It's just a catalog of your products. So
Okay, so step one is people not knowing that they probably should run those kinds of ads.
yeah, Victor and I, most of the accounts we get in, it's kind of crazy. Like big name agencies are just running like stuff to, wide open targeting, no catalogs. And you've already got, you've already captured traffic. Why not take advantage of it?
Hmm. And then retargeting, meaning just not turning on an ad that then, like, okay, there's a pixel or something that knows if people have already looked at your ads and then just running some stuff to them.
Exactly. Yeah. So just creating an audience of usually we test 7-day site visitors and 30-day site visitors. So we test both of those. One of those is going to win. Whichever one wins, leave that on. And this is a big hack. A lot of people, if you have a lot of purchasers or emails, put those in an audience. A lot of people aren't doing that. We get in accounts and they're not retargeting past purchasers. Some of these brands have 300,000 past purchasers. I mean, that's like a freaking gold mine, It's like crazy. Yeah. So, mm.
Wow. Okay, cool. And what about in terms of setting up the audience? Because when I did it, okay, I found this button that said you can do a lookalike audience, people who look like your audience,
Mhm.
target it to them. But I think there's much more advanced stuff that you can do, right? Or I was picking a city if but I think I was doing it really inefficiently. So what are the basics of setting up the audience for your ads?
Yeah. So remarketing, we went over those. That's your past purchasers. We'd also segment engaged emails versus unengaged emails because you probably have a lot of emails. And then also 7-day and 30-day site visitors and run a catalog campaign to those. For audiences, it can get a little bit more complicated. Uh, we test a couple of things. Probably the highest likelihood of success right now is either going to be a lookalike audience, and you need to test 1% lookalikes, 5% lookalikes, and 10% lookalikes. One of those
What
is
does that mean?
so if you have it is an audience that looks like, let's just say your purchasers. So if you create a lookalike audience out of your purchasers, what Meta does is it says, okay, I have 3,000 people on this list. I'm going to go find, people that are closest in socioeconomic class. I'm going to find people that are closest in area, and it's gonna find all these different dimensions that are close to those people in your list. So, and then it's basically just finding people that look like that audience.
Okay, and the 1%, 5%, 10%, what's the difference between those?
Right. Okay. So that's 1% of the United States population, 5% of the United States population, and 10% of the United States population.
It's more
Yeah.
focused when it's
And
like
it's lower.
1%. 10% is a little bit more liberal, where it's like there are some people in there that might not be as precise.
Yeah.
It's a precision
Yes.
targeting.
Okay, and got it. And so if you do 1% versus 10%, I guess you're probably going to see yeah, I don't know. I mean, on the plus side, you could see a little bit higher ROI because they're more like the audience that you've gotten a good return from. But on the downside, you're probably like, it's not telling you everything and you might be missing some stuff if you're trying to stay too tight. And also, it's not as scalable.
Exactly. Yeah. 1% is not going to be as scalable. 10% is going to have more pockets, right? So Facebook is, not God. It's not always right. So a lot of times we see 5% and 10% perform better than 1%. And that's just because there's more pockets for it to test.
Pockets meaning just like broader reach of people. And then also you can probably learn more to actually have a better lookalike audience because it's testing more people with different characteristics.
Exactly. So basically Facebook within your lookalike, there's going to be buckets of audiences. So different cohorts of people that Facebook is grouping as similar. That's why a lot of times it's good kind of when you launch ads to let them run for a couple of days before you make any decisions, because you have to let it test through these different pockets of people. So,
Okay, amazing. So let me see if I can summarize what I think I just learned from you guys. And I think I'm a good test case because I know almost nothing about this, which is okay. So basically, at the beginning, you're going to want to get out there and really just see what's working with competitors and with your audience and figure out, hey, what are the styles of videos and still images that seem to resonate with people? And then get out there and make that content or see what content you already have. And then I think the key for you guys, it sounds like really is just test, test, test. Like test all the stuff you have, test tons of different iterations of it, like get a bunch of different hooks out there. And I know you guys have a
yeah.
template for that people can use, but then also like I think you can generate probably a bunch of AI hooks as well,
Oh,
just to
yeah.
be right and just test so many different things and then immediately just start, reallocating and driving your budget to things that start doing even better. And it might be hooks that you really don't expect or don't even like personally, but just seem to resonate with people who don't know you. And then over time, you're basically just going to be trying to get a lot of new people to find out about your brands. Maybe more of them will discover you through video if they didn't know you before, which can be really, authentic, interesting content for them to learn about your brand. And then, maybe over time you're then feeding them a little bit more like still images, reminding them about this beautiful product that they like, and they don't need to watch a whole video about it. They just need to remember to add it back to their cart. And then, yeah, probably over time still then just it's a game of just then, okay, starting to increase and try to optimize your profitability and then probably always testing and learning because, yeah, people are going to get probably sick and tired of the same hooks, especially once you start getting more penetration, more people see it places. What do you think? Is that a good summary or what? I know I'm probably missing a lot, but anything specific?
Oh yeah. I think that's good. The other thing I would say is most people are not doing the volume they think they need to do. There's a reason we test like, if like when we get a client, we will literally test 40 to 80 hooks. I mean, I think that's the most important thing that business owners aren't doing. Like when we do something, we try and do like about 5 to 10 times more than we think we should, because that's how you learn. And that's where you start to really push the edge of like what's known. Yeah.
And just like one little change of a word also can really have a big
Yeah.
impact, can't it?
Oh yeah. Huge.
And you won't know that unless you test both and then a bunch of other iterations as well.
There's a David Ogilvy quote that, Andrew and I really like, where it says 80 cents out of every dollar spent on
Yeah.
marketing is spent on the headline. And
Mhm.
it's night or day. And I love that, Daniel, you said, test, test, test. Absolutely. It's because the way that we see it is mastery is not working at something for 10,000 hours, is actually
Yeah.
10,000 iterations.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, great. And then just lastly, I know you guys have a special offer, which we love for our startup CPG brands to get to work with somebody like you, which I know is just because I've shopped around can often be kind of hard for early brands. Do you mind telling everybody about what that offer is?
Yeah. So we have two things. So one, so just so y'all know, normally like brands that we work with, we charge $7,500 to $15,000 for like our full service package. That's usually about like 60 iterations of a video a month, new videos, multiple hooks a month, and it's quite a bit of work. For startup CPG, we have a $2,500 package where you'll get like a bunch of hook iterations, you'll get research. You'll also get around like 5 videos a week. So 5 iterations a week of video. And so that's one package. And the other thing is if you want to learn on your own from us, we also have a coaching offer. So it's $1,500. You get 4 sessions a month. They're usually about an hour to an hour and a half. If you want to learn on your own, that's the fastest way, because we're going to give you all our SOPs. You're going to get all of our sheets. You're going to get all of our frameworks. And so it's something that it's something that, you can learn, and you could probably learn it pretty well in like 2 to 3 months. So
Amazing. All right, cool. Well, that's a very cool offer for people who kind of want just the coaching approach or a pared down approach as they start testing and learning. So that's
yeah.
awesome. Cool. All right. So yeah, I'd say just lastly, what's a good way for people to follow along with you guys to, add you on LinkedIn, or what's a good way?
Yeah, Victor, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, for me, definitely LinkedIn. Andrew's LinkedIn as well. And then email is definitely still something that we use a lot.
Email.
Yeah, that's a great place to kind of get in touch with us. I mean, we go through messaging and figure that out. So I assume that the handles and the email addresses will be in the show notes.
Yes, sir. We'll put everything in there.
Awesome.
We'll give you guys also a link to some great resources as well. And then if you want to follow up with Victor and Andrew, you will be able to do so. So just check the show notes. Thank you guys. I know this is a really complex topic, and it's one that I think a lot of us don't know a ton about in the community. And so I think this is a really cool overview. And I hope that, maybe if nothing else, people really just take away from this the idea of just getting as much out there as possible, like knowing what's working in your category with your competitors, and then testing a bunch of different stuff. And just don't be married to what you think your brand is all about always, because often like ask somebody else what they think about your brand, and they'll use words that might actually be way more compelling than the beautiful language that you constructed with your perfect headline,
That's absolutely right.
All right, guys, thank you again so much for joining us here on the Startup CPG podcast. Look forward to hosting you guys again soon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
All right, bye, bro. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast today, it would really help us out if you can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I am Daniel Scharf. I'm the host and founder of Startup CPG. Please feel free to reach out or add me on LinkedIn. If you're a potential sponsor that would like to appear on the podcast, please email partnerships@startupcpg.com. And reminder to all of you out there, we would love to have you join the community. You can sign up at our website, startupcpg.com, to learn about our webinars, events, and Slack channel. If you enjoyed today's music, you can check out my band. It's the Super Fantastics on Spotify Music. On behalf of the entire Startup CPG team, thank you so much for listening and your support. See you next time.